take that breath. I want to know what's going on. Boy, I messed up now.
Help you.
Well, we don't want to have a kingdom. We want to have a church.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm here today with Brother Donnie White, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself, and we're going to ask some questions, and hopefully it'll be a good time.
Okay. Well, again, I'm Don White. I'm the pastor here at Fresh Anointing Church in Brookwood, Alabama. Hometown. I was born upstate, well, actually born in New Jersey, raised upstate New York, moved to Alabama in the early 70s. I guess my hometown is the McCalla, Brookwood area. Right now, I'm currently living in Coaling, Alabama. I'm a graduate of Brookwood High School. I really don't have a lot of formal education. I did do a little seminary instruction through the churches that I was involved with. They were put on by ministers within the churches that I was affiliated with at the times. I have two children, a daughter and a son, well, son and daughter, and a stepdaughter, and I have 6 grandchildren, 4 boys, ages 20, 19, and 17, and 2 girls, ages 13 and 9.
Don't get in trouble.
I'll get in trouble for that. I am currently retired. I retired from the Mercedes-Benz plant after 23 years there. I am full-time pastor here at Fresh Anointing. Currently married, living in Lake Wildwood. My wife Janice is actually, we graduated high school together, but really haven't been married that long. We'll get into some of that later on, what happened. So anything else? Just, yeah.
Sounds great. Just a short information about yourself, and you know, we want pastors to tell, you know, those watching, you know, their testimony about how they came to Christ, about that journey, that you know, that miraculous day or that time, and just if you wouldn't mind sharing yours.
Okay. Well, I guess mine starts. I was not raised in church. My family. I guess we had morals, but we didn't have Christ. When I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I had a preacher come around. Every time I turn around, he's coming by the house. I was living in West Blockton. And one day he come by and we were putting a roof on the house. And of course I seen him coming, so we all hit our beer. And he offered to help clean up the mess if I'd come to church on Sunday. And I said, well, preacher, we got this all taken care of. I said, but I promise you I'll get there. And I wasn't one to make idle promises. I've always been good at keeping my promises. And I thought to myself, boy, I messed up now. Well, just so happened, I put it off. Finally, my daughter had started going to church, and she'd gotten saved. And I didn't know what being saved was, and baptized. So we all went to the church, and she watched the baptism and all. And at the time, I was working a really tough swing shift. So I was only able to go to church really one Sunday a month, and one other Sunday I could make an evening service. So I started going, and I kind of enjoyed it a little bit, but I still didn't have a clue what was going on until the preacher told us that we were going to close church one week. We weren't going to have Wednesday night service, and we were going to his home church in Fultondale. So we all load up and go up there, and of course I'm driving the van, and we got all the folks in the van. We're going up there, and this camp meeting. I mean, we're talking about old-fashioned camp meeting. These 2 preachers in the morning, 2 preachers in the evening, food, singing, you know, and I was enjoying myself, but still didn't know too much about what they were talking about. And then on Wednesday night, I wasn't going to go, but the preacher talked me into going. He said, look, I don't have anybody can see to drive at night. He said, you're the only one I got. And he said, please drive the van. So I said, okay. I drove, and I get up there that night, and I'll never forget, I'm in the back row of the church, and there's probably 300 people in that little church just packed in there. And the first preacher gets up, and he preached about what it's going to be like for those that die and go to hell. And he gets through, and I'm pondering everything he said. It's just eating at me. They have a little song service, and another preacher gets up, and he's preaching about being raptured away and about the folks that are going to be left behind. And by the time he gave an invitation, before I could even imagine what I needed to do next, I was standing up. And there was a young man beside me, and I told him, I said, Waylon, if you don't move, I'm going to run you over, so you don't have to move or go with me. Because I'm thinking, if I die, I'm going to hell. And if I don't die, I'm going to get left behind. I'm still going to die and go to hell. And I took off down that aisle. And I'm going to tell you, Travis, I got close to the altar, and it was like somebody grabbed my feet and just pulled them out from under me, and I come face first on an air conditioner return vent, and I just stayed right there. And my pastor come over and he said, Brother Don, can I pray with you? I said, I looked up at him, looked him dead in the eye, and I said, you ain't got to worry about me. I'm getting a date. And I want you to know that night I gave my life to Christ. It was July the 19th, 1996. I give my life to Christ on that altar at Glory Land Baptist Church, and I had never looked back. And my life started changing. It was a little bit at first, but then things started changing quickly. People started noticing it. And my life has been a series of hills and valleys. And I've learned that walking with the Lord isn't a bed of roses. You know, the valleys are there for a purpose. And I've gone through a lot of valleys, but the valleys have made me grow. It makes me appreciate the mountaintops. But I know when I get on the mountaintop, get ready, I'm fixing to go down again. And I did learn this, the most important thing that I've learned, and I pass this on to any new convert, is the closer you get to Christ, the closer Satan's going to get to you, because he don't like it. Absolutely. And in my life, like I said, I've never been happier. The things I did before salvation, God didn't change the fact that I can't sin, but he changed my wanter. I don't want to do those things anymore. I don't want to go those places. I don't want to do those things. I don't want to hang out with those people. I have a new perspective, and it gets better every day.
Awesome testimony. Thank you for sharing that. No, that was great.
You're welcome.
Well, let's move into some, just some personal questions that, help those looking get to know you, describe yourself in one word, and why use that word?
One word.
If you think of one.
I'd have to say compassionate.
Passionate.
Because I have a heart for people. I told my congregation not long ago that I went through some changes in my life that we'll talk about later that really made me look at people in a different light. I went from jail and prison ministry to pastoring over a period of about 27, 28 years. Done a lot of both. But when I went through some big valleys, God opened my eyes to see people in a different light. I realized that we got to look at people like God sees us. I can't look at people as men and women and black and white or yellow or red. I have to look at people as God's children, His creation. And I look at people in a different light. And it's almost like Jesus describes the mother hen when he talks about Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I'd like to wrap you up and hold you close. I'm that way when I see people. I want to talk to them about Christ. I want to know that they're saved. I want to, and I'm a sucker for a sad story. Now don't get me wrong. Now I'm not a pushover. Sure. I can find the truth out, but when I know somebody's in need, I'll do whatever it takes to help. And I think God changed that for me as I began to pastor, probably in the last 15 years. I realized through the training that I had, and I got to give credit to my pastor, Terry Smith. He lives in Maplesville, and he's pastoring a church in Clanton. But 13 years under Terry Smith in Brent, Alabama, I learned a lot about pastoring. I learned good stuff and I learned bad stuff. And one of the things I learned was compassion. And I think that's been my biggest asset. Sometimes it's a big liability, but it's me. It's who I am. I care about people.
Absolutely. What are some hobbies that you have? What do you like doing? How do you spend your spare time?
My spare time, my grandkids. Unfortunately, my boys are all just about old enough where I don't matter too much anymore. I still got one that'll come around. All I got to do is whistle and here he comes. But grandkids, the two girls, gymnastics and softball. I enjoy that. But my personal time, my wife and I like to travel, which pastoring gives us a little hitch in that. We have to work around schedules, but
Sure.
I like to travel. But I do have a little hobby that I do right now. I haven't been able to. I've had some equipment failures I got to work on, but I have two hobbies. One is woodworking, turning on a lathe, wood turning. I love to do that. I'm not very good at it. I'm still a novice, but I'm learning. But I got a lathe that's broke down and just hadn't had time to fix it. But my other hobby is a motorcycle. For, I guess, 8-9 years, I was the elder for the Tuscaloosa County Chapter of Messengers of the Cross. Before that, I was the national chaplain for that organization. And we did a lot of ministry with motorcycle ministry, which was a huge, it's amazing how many people are involved in motorcycles. Yeah. It's just such a huge field of opportunity there to go out and spread the gospel and win souls. And I'll tell you, there's some stories behind that. We had a couple that actually started coming to church with us that wanted to know about our motorcycle ministry. I hope I'm not taking up too much time.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
They wanted to meet with us and go for a ride and just talk about the ministry. So we took off one Saturday and we rode down to Montevallo, and we got down to Orr Park, and we went through, and just if you've ever been down there, they got all the trees, faces carved in the trees. We walked through. We get in the big gazebo out there, and we're sitting down, and they asked us about, well, what exactly is the motorcycle ministry that you guys are in? And I told them, I said, it's really just being in the right place at the right time. I said, because this ministry just happens. I said, a lot of times we plan stuff and something in the midst of it is going to take place. We go on rides. We have one ride we do every February on a Friday night. It's an all-night ride. Unless it's bad precipitation, doesn't matter how cold it gets, we're going to ride. And it's about a 240-mile ride round trip. And we raise money for St. Jude's. It's called our hardcore ride. Well, every year something takes place. We run into a waitress at a Waffle House last year that her son was in St. Jude, and just made it that more special for us. And we were able to pray with her and donated the money in his name, and it was a really big thing for us. But going back to the story, I told him, I said, things just happen. We never know what's going to happen. So we left Orr Park, and we were going to go to Calera, but somebody decided, hey, we need to run over here to the store. Let's get some water and take a bathroom break, and then we'll figure out where we're going to go. So we ride a mile over to this little store, and we're all outside drinking water, standing around our bikes. And one of the ladies comes out, and she said, hey, you guys, we need to pray for this girl. And next thing I know, I got this young lady and this young man out there, and her children were taken away from her. Her power had been cut off. They'd lost their job. They both worked the same place, and they got laid off. And they were just heartbroken. And we were trying to minister to them, and one thing leads to another, and we're all down on our knees, and I led them to the Lord right there in the parking lot in that BP station. And actually right there on the spot, I called a friend of mine and got him into his church over in Briarfield, and he baptized them. I keep in touch with her. She's got her children back now. She's doing good. She's actually on her second job since then, and that's been 7-8 years ago. But and they were hooked. You know, yeah. Alan and Joe Dell were like, this is for us, and they stuck with us right up till we stepped out of that ministry, and we actually started a new one. It's called Guardians of the Word, and we're not so restricted with this. We kind of branched out on our own, and it's something that we allow people, even folks without motorcycles, that want to get involved. And we've really just got started. We haven't done a whole lot with it yet, but church members can join. People, all you got to have is a testimony of faith. One thing led to another, and they started coming to our church, joined our church. Her husband became a deacon, and he was one that we lost this year due to COVID, but it was an awesome couple, and she's still with us, and it's just been, that's the way things work.
Yeah, that's great, though. No.
But that's part of my hobbies, yeah. Motorcycles and wood.
Let me ask this, what do you when you get home and relax and you're not doing that? Do you watch TV? Do you have favorite shows? Do you?
Yeah, my wife and I, we're we're old school. Andy Griffith,
Can't go
Green
wrong there.
Acres.
Yeah.
I got my and then I got to watch my Hogan's Heroes.
Okay.
Every night, 2 episodes, Hogan's Heroes before bed. When I'm not watching TV, I'm a stickler to keep up with the news. I'll read the news. I watch it. I watch some movies. I have a streaming service, Tubi, which is a free streaming service that I use. A lot of older movies. I watch a lot of westerns and World War II movies, things like that, when I have time. But I try to limit. We don't watch a lot of TV. A lot of times it's real quiet at our home. Me and my wife, unless grandgirls are there. We have a lot of quiet time. I study a little bit now and then, and now and then I study probably a minimum 3-4 hours a day. 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Mondays are definitely, I don't study on Monday. I'm brain dead on Mondays. Matter of fact, every Monday morning I'm like, I quit. I'm not doing it anymore.
Every week.
Every week. And then by Tuesday morning I'm like, okay, I'll stick with it. Let me get back into work.
All right, just kind of a personal flavor there. We talked about coffee earlier, and you broke a rule, didn't you?
Oh, thank you for telling
sorry,
that.
Sorry. There was coffee in the sanctuary.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm in trouble. I'll have to confess my sins for Wednesday night to the church, so they can forgive me after I confronted a couple of folks Sunday about coffee in the sanctuary. I am a coffee hound. I love coffee. I probably drink a pot of coffee or more a day. I used to do more than that. I guess Folgers, and I really don't like Dunkin' Donuts blend, but there is a donut shop blend. It's a generic that's pretty good that I use. Not much into flavored coffee. Don't like cold coffee. Supposed to be drank hot. I don't like cold coffee. Not at all.
Well, tell us about how you became pastor of this church. I know it was a long journey. I've known you a long time, but tell about your calling the ministry.
Okay. Well, I guess I went through a divorce in 2011, 2010, late 2010, all the way through 2011. I went through a divorce, and I'm going to save that for another part of the interview,
Sure.
Because that's an important part that people need to understand. How a pastor can go through a divorce and still continue to pastor, because there's a lot of places that won't have that.
Sure.
But I went through a divorce. I moved from the area I was living in down in Bibb County. I moved back close to my mom in Woodstock area, and started dating a lady that I went to school with, who's now my wife. And this was a church that she attended, and she brought me up here, and I fell in love with the church. And the first time I walked in, the pastor, Bobby Jack Green, he found out I was a preacher. I didn't even sit down good. He said, "Brother, you want to preach?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess so," because I was raised up in a church where you're supposed to be in season. You're supposed to be in season, out of season. You better be prepared.
Ready to go. Absolutely.
And I've always been that way. And matter of fact, I'm mentoring a youth pastor now, and he's found out that I'm quick trigger with him.
And you're serious about it.
Yeah. Even my deacons. But I fell in love with the church. We started coming here back and forth, one Sunday here, one Sunday at my church down in Brent. And I finally cut ties with my church. And I told them, I said, "Look, I'm going to move. It's just better for me. It's just such a long drive. I found a church that I love." And I was the associate pastor there. And our pastor resigned, and we brought in a new pastor. And when he come in, he wanted me to stay as associate pastor. And I explained to him, I said, "Look, I think it's better now for you not to have an associate pastor, because you need to bond with the people. They need to come to you." I said, "I don't think that I would be a help. I think I'd be more of a hindrance, because I've been there so long. I've been at that church 15 years, and 13 of those as associate pastor." I said, I think it's better for you if I resign as associate pastor." And then after about 6 or 8 months, I actually left the church and moved my membership here. And I was here probably 2 years, and the associate pastor here moved to help his son with the ministry. And Brother Green asked me if I would come on as associate pastor, and I said, "Absolutely." I really didn't have to pray much about it. I said, I fell in love with the church. And his age was catching up, and he started using me a lot. And he had set me down about 3 years prior to when things happened. He said, I want you to take over this church when I retire. And I said, brother, I said, preachers don't retire. You're going to preach till you die. At his funeral, I told his wife, I said, I wished I'd never said that because he passed away early January of this year. And the deacons called me and we got together, and I told them, I said, look, I said, if y'all want to look for a pastor, I said, I'm on board. I said, if you want to, I said, and the first thing out of them was, well, what about you? And I said, well, if y'all want me to be pastor, I said, I'll take it. I said, but I'm going to tell you this. I said, I'm not going to come into a house that's divided. I said, if it's not a unanimous vote, I said, you're going to find somebody else. I said, I'll be here. I'll help you any way I can. I said, but if y'all want me to be pastor, it's got to be unanimous. And it took about a week to get all the votes in because of the pandemic.
Sure.
And they informed me that the only negative comment they got was from my wife, and she said if I got it, I better straighten up or she's going to put knots on my head. So, but no, I got a 100% approval, and I was humbled, and I've been really enjoying myself here. But it's been 2012, late 2012, I think I moved my membership here and took over as associate pastor about 2015 maybe, 2016, right in there. Actually, I think it was 2016. It was a few years because I had just come back from Germany with my job, and Jan and I were married in May, and I think I had just taken the position right after we got married. Yeah. So,
well, a lot of churches define the role of the pastor in different ways. How do you see the role of a pastor?
As a pastor, I'm the shepherd. The church is my flock, and when I say that, if you're not I really don't want to say a scholar, but if you're not knowledgeable of a shepherd's role, his role is to feed the sheep. His role is to protect them. His role is to keep them safe, take care of them and everything they need. And when one strays, he goes after them. As a pastor here, my role is to feed the sheep, which is to give them the word. I give them what God gives me. I'm the over shepherd here. I'm not a dictator. I don't make rules, and I have a code word with my deacons that if I get loose-lipped and bring something up that we haven't discussed, somebody will holler waffle,
okay,
and I'll know that I've made a mistake and I got to back up. And
okay.
Because we like to, honestly, we like to really talk through things. Change is something people don't always take well.
Sure.
So we're very cautious about changes in the church. Now, if we see something needs to be changed, we will address it. We'll take care of it. As far as services and all, when I came in, it was a smooth transition because we really haven't changed. We haven't changed. There's only been one little change that we made in the way we do our services, and it was for the good, dealing with our money, how we handle money. But my job as the pastor, I guess, to sum it all up, is to feed the flock, to show them what God wants them to know, what God wants me to know, to teach them God's word, to teach them who Jesus was, what his ministry was about, and what God wants from us, and that we're to be disciples. And that's my biggest thing, is I'm a disciple creator, is the way I look at it. As far as the leadership in the church, we have a structure here. I think you've got a question about that. I don't know if we can lead into that now.
That's okay.
But the structure in the church, being the pastor, I'm the lowest of the low. I am a servant leader. I won't ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself. If something needs to be done around here, my wife gets on to me all the time because I just take care of it. And she said, there's other people can do some of that. And I'm going, well, I'm impatient. I don't like to wait. And I don't like to bother folks. I'm retired. I got time.
Sure.
But, I'm chief cook and bottle washer. I got good people in this church. I got to be careful sometimes because I'll ask people to do stuff and they'll jump right on it. And I get in trouble sometimes because I go ahead and get things done, and it didn't come out exactly the way everybody wanted it done, but it got done.
It got done.
You know, but my deacons are I've got some awesome deacons. We just ordained a new deacon 2 weeks ago, and it was the first time that this church, and since I've been here and before under Bob Jack when he was alive, it was the first time they'd really had a real ordination. My former pastor, his ordination was, he'd call them, fill out a piece of paper, present them to the church, pray over them, and put them to work. Of course, now I go through the formal thing. I do we set them aside, we examine them, then we preach the charge, and we lay on hands. And one of my deacons come to me after service. He said, "You're serious about this thing, aren't you?" And I said, "You doggone right, I'm serious about it. God's serious about this thing." And I always give him an out. Yeah. I give him about 10 seconds, just like they do in a wedding. If you can't handle it, now's the time to jump.
Speak now, forever hold your peace.
But I oversee the church, but I'm accountable to everybody. And my deacons remind me of that when I get a little overzealous. They say, "Hey, wait a minute now. Let's talk about it. You're the man, but we need to make sure everybody's on board. We don't want to do something stupid." And I've been known to do stupid things.
Nobody who has.
I learned by my mistakes. Yeah.
Well, let's tell about some of the biggest challenges you faced in life, or as a pastor, or whichever.
One of my biggest challenges I touched on a little earlier was a divorce.
Sure.
My job, I think, as an employee at Mercedes-Benz, and don't take it wrong, Mercedes was a great job. I had a good living, and I hate saying ex, but my ex-wife just one day decided she didn't want to be married anymore. And I knew there was some trouble, and I guess I failed because I didn't take it seriously when things started changing. When a pastor's wife quits going to church, should be a red flag. That
Sure.
I just I dealt with it as best I could, and I just said, well, you know what, I'm gonna keep going, and maybe she'll come on. But there will come a day where she filed for divorce, and I'm not gonna go into any ugly details.
Sure.
It's just one thing happened, and we divorced. It's not been a bad, ugly divorce. There's no bitterness. We still have a cordial relationship when we see each other. Of course, we got grandkids and children together. Sure. She's the mother of my children, and the grandmother of my grandchildren, and we've learned to deal with each other, and it's we've moved on. I've remarried, and I don't know if she's married. I think that's her business. I don't know.
Right.
She got a. I guess he's a husband. I don't know. Okay. He lives there with her, but we got through it. But that was a challenge for me because at the time I was completely broken because not about the marriage, because I could survive. I was broken because I thought that was the end of the ministry. I thought God will never be able to use me again. And then my pastor, out of his wisdom, he set me down and he explained some things to me. He said, "Look," he said, "God forgives everything. It's man that has a problem." And he said, you might not be able to get a position as a pastor in Southern Baptist, and again, you might. He said, "You just never know where God will lead you." He said, "Don't give up." He said, "Just hang in there, keep doing what you're doing." And I never missed a beat. Churches overlook things. They go, "You know what? We understand when there's details that they can
Yeah.
I don't have to say bad things. I don't have to dig up laundry on anything, but all they got to do is look at the facts, and and everything's. I haven't had any trouble. My church has accepted it, and they understand the situation. But for me, that was the biggest challenge I think I ever faced, especially in the ministry. There was a period of time where I just thought it was over and God couldn't use me anymore, and I found out that wasn't true. And we've persevered.
Absolutely. I imagine that was a very stressful time. You just mentioned that. How do you deal with stress? How do you cope with stress?
I guess I think it's Acts chapter 26. Paul was preaching to King Agrippa. And I kind of take this verse out of context, but Paul said, "I think myself happy, King Agrippa, that I can have this opportunity to preach to you." And what I do when I'm overstressed is I have to take that breath, bring the world back into perspective, breathe, and then that verse comes to mind. And I guess I've trained myself when I get overstressed, or is I go, I think myself happy. And what I do is I start thinking about all the things that God's done for me, all the blessings I've had in life, all the things that He's brought me through, and all the times I've had to lean on Him when I couldn't have made it on my own.
Sure.
And that's what I do. I think myself back to the joy of His salvation and the joy of all the things that He's done for me. And of course, riding a motorcycle helps too.
Yeah, good coping mechanism.
Yeah,
there.
a little wind therapy.
Absolutely. What would you say are some of your biggest victories?
Biggest victories. I guess some of my biggest victories. My biggest victory ever was my dad. My dad didn't go to church. He heard me preach one time his whole life. He was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer, in 2009. We didn't realize how bad it was. I went to see him. They had called us all to come together, and they told us what was going on. He was going to start treatments, and I was upbeat about it. He was upbeat about it. And after a couple of months, I wanted some answers, and Dad told me, he said, won't you go with me? I got an oncologist appointment and a radiology appointment. He said, maybe they'll tell you something. So I went with him, and of course the oncologist didn't want to talk to me, but we fixed that. My dad said, I think we got a problem because you need to listen to what he's got to ask, and you need to answer. And I told the doctor, I said, I think we got a failure to, I think what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Right, yeah.
I want to know what's going on. But we got some information from him, and basically he said, I don't know. He said, preacher, you're closer to the man with the answers than me. So, and then we went to radiology, and in the radiology clinic, I realized how bad my dad was because they took his shirt off, and I seen the blackened skin from the radiation. I didn't realize that. I hadn't been there to do the care. My mom and baby brother had been taking care of him, and from that point on, for the next several months, I tried to witness to my dad, and I could never draw the net. We'd get right up to that point, and he'd say, don't worry about me. You need to worry about my brother. He's the one who needs to hear what you got to say. And I never could draw that net. Well, then one Sunday, I get a call. Dad was out of his head. They took him to the hospital. I got there just as the ambulance came to pick him up. I followed him to the hospital and got him in there. They got him on some oxygen, and he got better. He just got confused from lack of oxygen. Well, make the long story short, they put him in a room and said, we're not going to be able to do any more treatments. The cancer's metastasized. So we had intended to bring him home with hospice. This was on Sunday night, Monday morning. I went home to get some sleep. I come back Monday, and the whole family was there. And we were all crowded around the bed. My brother Dean was holding his left hand, and I was sitting on the other side holding his right hand. As long as we held his hand, his pulse stayed smooth and everything was good. We let go of his hands, the pulse would start dropping off, so we kept holding his hands. And he was conscious. Well, the nurse come in to give him a breathing treatment, and he told her he wanted to clear the room out. He couldn't sleep with everybody in there. He needed to get some sleep. She said, y'all heard him. So everybody started filing out, and my cousin Eric was standing in front of me beside the bed. And I stood up, and my dad said, I don't want you to go yet. I want you to stay here. I said, okay. So I told Eric, I said, hang around just a minute. And I don't know why I done that. And Dad said, need to make sure some things are taken care of. I said, Pop, don't worry about nothing. We got Mama took care of. We're going to get you home. Everything's fine. I said, you ain't got nothing to worry about. He said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. He said, I need to make sure some things are right with the Lord. Well, at this point, I become a basket case. My dad's asking me about the Lord, and I'm trying not to be emotional now.
That's all right.
But I was overwhelmed. And my cousin reached in his back pocket and pulled out a New Testament. He said, Uncle Dave, can I read some scripture to you? Oh, yeah. Well, he started in on Romans. He gets to Romans chapter 9, chapter 10. I don't remember where it was now. But I said, I got this. And I told Daddy, I said, Dad, I said, the Bible says, if you'll believe in your heart, confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus. Do you believe Jesus was the Son of God? Well, but I always have. I said, you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead on the third day? Well, yeah, you can prove that in court today. I said, the Bible says you can be saved. I said, all you got to do is ask him to come in your heart and save you. He said, well, I did that yesterday. I said, when did you do it yesterday? He said, the chaplain come around. I said, well, Daddy, why are we going through this now? He said, because I want to make sure I had what you had. He said, I seen it in you. And it broke my heart. Sorry.
It's okay. No problem.
The next morning at 5:30, I got up to leave. I told him, I said, Dad, I'm going to get a shower. I said, I'll be back a little later today. At 8:30, my phone rings, and he was gone. And I was able to get through losing my best friend because I knew where he was.
Absolutely.
And it stuck with me that he'd say, I wanted what you had.
Yeah.
You know, all those years, all those times that he wouldn't listen, and I couldn't draw the net, and then right there at the end, you know, anyway.
Yeah. No, that's,
I guess,
the greatest victory for sure.
yeah, for me, that and the fact that I've led 4 grandchildren to the Lord, a daughter-in-law, a son-in-law, a mom, a dad. It's hard to witness a family.
Yeah.
But good thing about the grandkids, they didn't know me before.
There wasn't a whole lot to unlearn there.
Yeah. They didn't have to watch me all them years and see what really changed.
Well, what has God taught you as a minister? What would you say?
He has taught me think before I speak.
Sure.
Keep my foot out of my mouth. You know, Confucius said, "Man how does it go? Man who stick foot in mouth get athlete tongue."
Yeah.
And I used to be bad about sticking my foot in my mouth because I'd run my trap before I thought about what I was going to say. Yet God has shown me to be slow to speak, sly as a fox, and as harmless as a dove. And I think that's been the biggest thing, is to learn not to jump the gun and really think things through, pray about things.
Yeah. You know, on the, looking at the bottom of the page, you know, the last question there, you know, in this world today, you know, it's red and blue, and if you're not this, you can't be that, and you know, how do you as a pastor navigate those rocks and shoals of a politically charged world?
Well, I'm very fortunate that I'm in a very conservative part of the country.
Sure.
I'm in a very conservative church, and I'm a very conservative person. Yes, politics affects things. You can't help that.
Yeah.
Things are going to come in and out. But the thing is, the only time that you see it affected is when it goes against the scriptures.
Yeah.
And that's what, as a pastor, it's my job to show people the morality of God, to show people what God wants and what God is displeased with. And if it's because of politics, so be it. But one of the things that I've had to do as a pastor and as a person is I've had to back away from the conservative radio and all the news channels and the bombardment. You know, it was constant. It was every day. I was just listening, eating it up. And I realized that it had turned me into a person that was unable to have a good witness to someone who didn't see things the way I did. I would become argumentative because I knew what I considered to be the truth. And I had to back away from that because I had to change not so much not my thinking, but I had to change my attitude toward those that didn't quite believe like I did. And I've backed away where I just keep a minimum It's not overwhelming anymore, but I'm able to deal with people on a level, like Paul said, I have to be all things to all men. And I couldn't do that with the mindset that I was getting from the continual bombardment of all the conservative talk radio and listening to the left and the right and all the fights and politics were eating me alive. And because I've done that, I have actually decreased a lot of stress in my life. And I have a much better perspective dealing with people that may not think or believe exactly the way I do. So it's been a journey.
We asked a lot of questions, kind of relating to how every pastor is different. Of course, we know every person is different, but every church is different too. Can you walk us through, some stuff about the church? I mean, how many people attend here? How many are, and I know in Southern Baptist life, there's a big discrepancy between how many are actual members and how many actually
on the roll and how many attend.
Yeah.
Well, we're a non-denominational church. We've got probably the majority of our folks are Baptist, and we've got a handful that were Pentecostals, Nazarenes. We're a pretty good mix of folks. But the thing I found is denominations are just a tag.
Sure.
We're all Christians. We run, since the pandemic, we're probably one of the largest congregations in the area. Considering the size of our church, I think that's quite a statement, since we're quite a small church. But we're running upwards of, we had, I think it was 52 people yesterday morning. Wednesday nights, we run anywhere from 10 to 25 people on Wednesday night. Sunday nights, we're usually 35, 40 people, but I'd say on average, we're probably averaging about 40 to 45 people every service, Sunday nights. Wednesday nights, Wednesday nights are just,
Sure.
I have a lot of elderly people that can't see to drive at night. So this time of year, our attendance goes down.
Yeah.
Now, when time changes back, our attendance come back up. And we do have some that'll carpool, hey, I'll come by and get you if you want to go. So that helps. But we're a small church, but we have an organization. We meet every Tuesday night. We're on vacation right now, but we'll start back in January. It's called SET. It's the Southeast Tuscaloosa Christian Fellowship. And it is a group of pastors and folks from the churches from all denominations in this area of Tuscaloosa County. And what we do is we are working to evangelize our community. We're not in competition, and I've never seen a dozen pastors get in a room and everybody on the same page. It's just been, God's in this thing, because you can't get that many preachers in the same room and they all agree. But it's been a huge thing going on, and it's not a competition. It's just new ways because of the pandemic, and I know I'm getting off script.
That's all right.
here,
Okay.
but new ways, really because of the pandemic, that we can reach the community and build the churches back up. Build the kingdom. It's not about church building. We go to build churches, we're going to fail. We've got to build the kingdom. And it's alternative ways that we've been finding to reach the community. And like I said, it's, if the church up the road here gets 50 people and I get one, I'm going to be just as happy as if the 50 came here, because I know they're in church and they're doing something. But yeah, we're one of the larger congregations in this area. I've actually been keeping up with one of the bigger churches in the area. I haven't heard anything from your church. I don't know what y'all run, but I know we've actually been beating Evergreen out on attendance here the last couple of months. So I've been pretty proud of God on that. I'm not going to toot my horn because it ain't nothing I've done. But yeah, we're doing pretty good. We're going strong.
Well, money that's put in the offering plate or given, how do you guys determine where it's going? Do y'all set a budget? Do you?
We're in a
comes?
transition period right now, kind of like one administration to another.
Sure.
And we've made some little changes with how we handle money. The one thing that we're trying to come up with now is we're tracking our income and outgo right now. My wife and I, we don't touch the money.
Sure.
I think that's absolutely wrong for a pastor or a pastor's wife to be involved, but we are accounting for it as far as we get the numbers. I know what comes in, I know what goes out, and I'm trying to track that to try and see where we go. we have we don't really have a set budget. We just fly by the seat of our pants really right now if something comes up, because our church is very blessed. We have money and our bills are paid. We have no debt. We're able to help people in need, which we did some tremendous stuff right here at the holidays with our own church members and some people outside the church. We were able to give a lot to help a lot of people. And that's something that we all agree on is, we shouldn't hoard God's money, but we shouldn't waste it. We got to be good stewards of it, but we got to use it when we need it. And I'll give you an example of how good this church is. We built that fellowship hall you were in a while ago, a few years back, right at $65,000, $68,000. We paid cash for it. And within 6 months, we had that much money more back in the bank. And this is just a small congregation. I'd like to say dirt farmers, but I don't think we got any farmers. We got all retirees mostly, and but we got folks that give. This church really loves to give, but we're working on budgets. Right now, we run kind of, I think what they call it is a zero budget. As the need comes up, we talk about it, we do what we need to do. But that's and we do have set salaries. We have some paid staff, of course, the pastor and our youth pastor, and we have a secretary and custodian, and we have set amounts that we pay them. We basically set the pastoral salary here. We took the Southern Baptist statistics. Sure. And they do it two different ways. You can do it by attendance or you can do it by budget. And we looked at both and realized that we fell in the budget range, and we've set it based on our projected, but about how much we spent, in the past before our pastor passed away. We set the salary for him based on that, which was almost double what the church paid him, because they didn't know what to pay him. Yeah. And he didn't, he did it for free, and that's like me. Yeah. I tell folks, I said, look, if I was preaching to eat, I'd starve to death, because it don't, I don't understand why anybody pay a band to preach anyway. I'd do it for free. God gives you that calling, like Isaiah said, it's a fire in your bones. It's got to come out. Yeah. I'd be preaching on a street corner if I wasn't in a church. But it's something new for us. We're in the process of getting to where we have a set budget, because we're building a youth department. We got a children's ministry, and we got outreach and things. And it's all right now, like I said, as the need comes up, we deal with it. But we're working in that direction. We're a few months away, but we're getting there.
You mentioned earlier, you talked about the church and you taking the leadership through a deacon ordination, and how does one become a leader in your church? In
our church, process? We look for folks to come that are, number one, faithful. Yeah. Well, no, let me back up. That'd be number two. Number one, they got to be saved. Yeah. They got to have a testimony. But somebody that comes that's faithful, and you'll find them. It doesn't take long to pull them out. We're always looking for new leaders, whether it be in teaching or the deaconate or as a pastor, because my church is adamant about having an associate pastor, and we really hadn't found one yet. We got a youth pastor, but they're going, that's not the same thing. And I'm thinking, well, I can mentor him. So we're in a crossroads right now. Sure. But we're always looking for leadership. I'm always looking for a deacon. You can never have too many deacons, I don't think.
I know a lot of pastors who argue with you on that.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes one's too many. But if you got good ones like I do, it's not a problem. Hey, I tell you, I got my. I hope he never sees this. The chairman of the deacons here. It's iron sharpens iron, and he keeps me sharp. He don't let nothing slide, and he'll call me out. in a minute, and it's good. Yeah. I like that. And there's moments when I don't like it, but it always works out. And the thing is, we can get heated, and we'll take a pause, come back, we'll forgive each other, and we keep going. But we work good together, and I love the man. He's great. But we're always looking for leaders. But number one, they got to be saved. They got to be a child of God. Number two, they've got to be faithful. Number three, they've got to be charitable. I don't know who tithes and who don't. I don't see that, but I want to know they're giving. You know, and we don't pass a plate here. That's something else I didn't mention.
Go ahead.
We don't pass a plate. Our offering plate sits on the table. People come in, they drop it in, or they drop it in when they leave. You know, and I'm afraid if I pass a plate, we'd go broke. Because they're so good at giving like that. And it just amazed me when I came here.
If it ain't broke, no point in fixing it.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, leadership is all that.
Sure. Well, you know, you and I joked earlier. You know, people wonder, what does a pastor do during the week? You know, we only work one day a week.
Yeah, just one day a week.
You just show up and give a 45-minute book report from the Bible, and that's about it. You know.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a rundown of my week.
All right.
On an average week. Of course, Monday I try not to do anything churchy.
Sure.
And here I am doing an interview.
I know it.
But if there's something needs to be done, I will. I take Monday as my off day. Tuesday I will start back. Of course, my mom's at a nursing home. I see her on Tuesday, and I have lunch with a crew. There's a young man, two of them have Down syndrome. We do Taco Tuesday with them on Tuesday afternoons. My brother-in-law's been doing it for years, and he got me involved, and I love them guys. And the people we sit with are so great. But we do that. But what I do in the mornings, just to kind of give you a look, I'm an early riser. I'm up 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning. And I'm going to study minimum an hour when it's quiet. Because I usually got that window 5 to 6 o'clock that it's nobody but me and my coffee. I can study. My wife usually gets up. She's got her own business. She has a cleaning service. And usually between 6 and 7, she gets up and the day gets started and things going on. And if it's a day where the kids are in school and I don't have any kids, after my wife leaves, I'll usually have an hour or two. I do a little housework. And then I take off and go to the nursing home, do my Taco Tuesday. In the afternoons, I pick up my granddaughter. And then we do homework and so forth. Tuesday night, after supper, there's downtime. I don't watch TV from 4 a.m. in the morning until about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I really don't get into it till 9 o'clock when Hogan's Heroes comes on.
Sure.
So there's several hours in there after the kids' homework, you know, before they go home, when mom comes pick them up, that I'll study again. Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning is my biggest day. Wednesday morning I study 2-3 hours on Wednesday morning. I have no duties on Wednesday morning with the grandkids. They spend the night. Wednesday night I have to take them to school on Thursday. But Wednesday morning I'll spend 3-4 hours studying to prepare for Wednesday night. Wednesday night I teach. We usually have about a 45-minute class after we have prayer requests. Thursday morning I take kids to school. I come back, I study Thursday, I start preparing for Sunday. Usually by Thursday night or Friday morning I got Sunday morning's message. Friday night I try to get a couple hours in. Saturday I always pull out a 3-hour block on Saturday to finish out Sunday night lesson. And in between all this, we have hospital visits, we have nursing home visits, we have people that call, need prayer. You know, it's a 24-hour day job.
Absolutely.
I keep tokens in my car to get in and out of the parking deck at Druid City Hospital. UAB, I'm starting to learn the hallways there. I always wondered how my pastor could always find his way around UAB, and I'm like, I get lost every time I go in there. Well, I realized after 35 trips, you figure out where things are.
No doubt.
Yeah, and the phone rings, I answer every call. Even if I don't know what it is, I answer the call because I never know when some lady's going to call me and say, we're moving Mama to hospice, or,
Sure.
you know. And then this past week, 2 funerals. 2 ladies in the church both lost their moms within hours of each other, you know, and so, you know, you got to squeeze all them in, and a lot of stuff gets put on hold because the church always comes first. And that's a hard thing for a family, to realize that sometimes the church is going to come before the family.
Yeah.
And it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. You know, it's only one day a week.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. So you mentioned earlier about the Southeast Tuscaloosa group of pastors and lay people that get together. What are you going to talk about when you get together?
Mostly we talk about prayer requests in our churches. That's the first thing we do. We come in and we start compiling a prayer request. We have a running prayer request list that we update every week. We keep up with prayers that were answered, prayers that are still ongoing. And then we move to the meat of our discussions are really about evangelism, discipleship, how to reach people in ways that we haven't been able to reach them in the past. One of the things that we talked about at our last few meetings was the fact that during the 80s and 90s, there was a great rush of membership in the churches. The churches boomed, but the problem was we left the fruit on the vine.
Sure.
We didn't disciple them, and we're paying the price today because that fruit rotted, and people fell away from the church, and it's hard to get them back in. And with the pandemic, people have gotten where they're scared, and they've become, I guess, for lack of a better word, hermits. They don't want to come out in the real world anymore, and we're really working at ways to reach these people in unconventional ways. We're utilizing FaceTime, messenger video chats, door. We created, one of the churches created these little bags with like a gift bag that we go hang on the door, and we'd let them know, hey, we're going to hang it on your door. We're not coming in. Any questions, give us a call. And we did have a big community revival, which was a huge hit, and we're going to do it again next year. And we saw a lot of things happen there. But you'd think a bunch of pastors get together, they'd start bragging about, oh, I preached on this and had 10 people. It don't happen.
Yeah,
we don't.
Great.
We're all about building the kingdom, and it's not about us. And it makes my heart swell when I get around these men that love the Lord like that, and they're selfless, and that's what has to be in the ministry. It's got to be a selflessness.
Follow the example that Christ set for us.
Exactly.
Well, the last question in this section, this is one I know that you're going to have a lot to respond about, is, COVID, of course, affected all of our ministries in our churches, and tell us about how it affected your church and you, and how the church adapted to overcome.
Well, COVID struck here. We thought we were just absolutely blessed all the way up through until December of 2019. COVID had been nowhere around. We had visitors in our church one Sunday morning, and their church had been devastated by COVID. And they came that morning, and I don't know that it came with them, but it was like within the next week, we had 25, 30 people in the church come down with COVID, including myself. We had some really severe cases, including myself. I probably should have died. I had one of the worst cases of COVID I think anybody's had, but I didn't go to the hospital. My wife saved my life. Her and the good Lord. She wouldn't let me lay down. She wouldn't let me, give up. She kept me moving, kept me going. She had it too, but she had a milder case. But just to give her a plug, she put me in the basement. We got a full basement, and she was upstairs. They told us to quarantine separately.
Sure.
So I took the basement. She took the upstairs, and she wouldn't bring anything down to me. She said at the top of the stairs, if I needed anything, food, water, anything, she'd sit up there and say, there it is, come get it. 17 steps, bottom to top. Every 2 hours, get up out of the bed, get in the chair, walk, move, go. And she kept me going. During the time of Christmas, from the 26th of December until the second week of February, we lost a lady in the church. The following week, we lost our pastor. The next week, we lost another lady and a deacon on the same day. And then 2 weeks later, we lost another lady in the church. We were devastated by COVID. I mean, we lost 5 people out of this small church. We shut the church down. The deacons and I talked over the phone. One deacon and I were real close. He come to my house and he helped me. We set up some services from my home. We did them outside on my patio downstairs patio with a top over it. We even did a sunrise service at Easter off my patio with the lake in the background and the sun coming up. It was a beautiful day. He handled our music. He brought some CDs and played them, and we give the message. But we went live stream on Facebook for about 2 months, and we finally started coming back into the church. Had the musicians come in, and I had 4 or 5 musicians, and we'd sing and play, and then I'd preach a message, and we started inviting people back to church, and it took us quite a while to start getting people in, and they started coming in, and I told them, I said, you wear a mask or not, it's on you. I said, I'm not going to make a mandate. I said, it's all about personal preference.
Sure.
And we realized after a while that about half the church was watching us online, but they weren't coming in. And I kind of got frustrated because I'm not one to beg people to come to church. So I spoke with the ones that were coming. I said, what do y'all think? Think we should keep going live? Or do you think we should shut it down and tell them if they want to have church, they need to come back? And I had about a 90% approval on shutting it down. So I made an announcement the last week that we videoed. I said, this is going to be our last broadcast. I said, if you want to come to church, come on. I said, we may do this later on, but for now, we need to get folks back in church because we need that physical touch. And the next week, our attendance doubled. And people came back, and they were just glad to be back. Sure. And I think they're COVID exhausted. Yeah. We had the church sanitized. We had a company come in, completely sanitize the church. As you can see, we still have masks hanging around the church. Anybody wants a mask, we got them. And it was tough for a while. It was tough to get past the loss. That's how, unfortunately, that's how I became pastor, is because our pastor was one of them that was taken from us. And the church decided they wanted me. I gave them options, and they were 100% in agreement. And I had told them if it wasn't unanimous, that I wouldn't come. And fortunately for me, and unfortunately for them, it was unanimous.
Well, let's touch on some hypotheticals, on some hot topics, and maybe some church culture, and maybe some stuff that people would be kind of interested to learn about. What are your thoughts? And maybe it's something you've dealt with, maybe something you haven't. But demon possession, is that something that's come in your way?
Let me give you I don't know if you'd consider it possession.
Okay.
I truly believe that it's possible because the scriptures say it is. Have I ever encountered it? I think I have. Not sure. But I'll give you an example of something that took place about 2005, 2006. Had a young lady contact one of the men in my church when I was at Pineview, and he called me up. He said, Brother Don, he said, can I meet you somewhere? I need to tell you about something. I said, sure. And he come to me and he said, this family, this man and woman, have moved out of their house next door into her mom's house with them because they're terrified to be in the house. I said, okay. He said, there's some strange things happening in that house. And I said, like what? He said, well, they're hearing voices, doors slam, and the door hadn't moved. They can hear the door slam, but it didn't move. Said the last thing happened, they were laying in bed one Saturday morning, and her husband rolled over to look to see what time it was, and there was an electric cord that was just floating in the air like a snake over their dresser. And they could hear a voice. They couldn't make out what it was saying. So they jumped up and left the house and won't go back in it. They videoed this thing. He had enough sense to take his phone and take a video of this cord just floating in the air. It was like the end of the cord was like a snake. It just back and forth. And
that freaked me out.
Yeah. And I gathered up a couple of men, and we took some anointing oil, and we started at the front door. We anointed the door case. We prayed, and if I told you I wasn't scared, I'm a lie. We anointed every window in the house, every doorway in the house. We prayed in every room. I had the husband and wife come back, and it took a little convincing to get them in. I anointed them. We prayed over them. And as far as I know, they've never had another instance in the house. They're still there. It's out in the Cafe Junction area. Probably one of the strangest things I've ever dealt with. Didn't experience anything myself, but I'll tell you what, I fasted for a day and a half before, because I remember what Jesus said. These didn't come out because it takes prayer and fasting. And I fasted for a day and a half. We went in there and I prayed. And when I got through, I went to the Mexican restaurant and had me a salad. But yeah, that's one of the strangest things I've ever dealt with. Yeah.
What's your feelings on you see people on TV, you have the faith healers and all that. How do you feel about those?
Well, just to be honest, if they have the ability to heal, why aren't they in the hospitals? Why aren't they walking the halls of the children's wards?
Yeah.
Why aren't they down at the cancer center? Unfortunately, man gets greedy. And I've seen healing take place, been a part of it, but it doesn't happen like that. I guess it could. But the Bible says, if they're sick among you, let them call the elders of the church to lay hands. Jesus and the apostles were the only ones that I ever heard anything about that were true healers. And they didn't go looking to heal people. People came to them, like the woman with the issue of blood.
Yeah.
She come to him in the press of the crowd and touched the hem of his garment, said, I know if I could just touch his garment. And when she did, what happened? He said, who touched me? And his disciples were like, what do you mean who touched you? We're in a crowd, all these people. He said, I felt the virtue go out. Somebody took power. And she knew she'd been found out. But I have lack of faith in what they're doing.
Sure.
Enough said.
I think you pretty much said what I said the other night when we were talking about these questions, but yeah, exactly. Just kind of one more question in this category. We talked earlier about a lot of musicians and maybe some pastors from, maybe some celebrity pastors from years past, if you can use that term, celebrity pastors, but who have renounced their faith or said they've deconstructed their faith and not sure if they would identify as a Christian anymore. What do you think about that?
For somebody to walk away from the faith that I have and say that they didn't believe that way anymore, I don't think they ever believed it in the first place. Because the God that I serve changed my life. He changed my heart. I can't go back. There's been times I wanted to quit. There's been times where I was angry at God. And I said, I'll never do it again. I'll never serve you. I'm walking away. I'm just being honest here. I've been angry at God about things that happened in my life since I was saved. But I could never walk away. I couldn't turn it. It's a part of me. God He lives within me, and I know that. And there's nothing I can do. How can I walk away from something that I've never had? Yeah. He's had me. The Bible says in I think it's John chapter 10, Jesus said, you're in my hand and no man can pluck you out. I am my Father. My Father is greater than all, and no man can pluck you out of his hand. And I explained to people, I said, do you realize God's hand, the hollow of his hand, he poured the seas out of the earth. If you're in that hand, in the hollow of that hand, and it's wrapped up, that's Jesus' hand, and then the Father's got his hand over it, how are you going to get out? How are you going to quit that? How do you lose something that you never earned? So my opinion of that is they weren't saved in the first place, period.
Awesome. Well, let's close up with a couple of questions here, and then share anything you want to share. What can not specifically your church members, and because we don't want to call anybody out or anything, but what can church members do to encourage their pastors?
Oh, the biggest thing you can do to encourage your pastor: show up.
Yeah.
Come, fill the pews. The most discouraging thing for a pastor is empty pews. Come to church. I've heard people say, well, we don't appreciate our pastor enough. We haven't done anything for him. Is that? You'd be surprised how little it takes to make a pastor feel appreciated. Just to shake his hand and have a smile on your face. Show up, sit in a pew. Just tell him, hey, preacher, we enjoyed that. Call him up once in a while and just check on him. Don't call with a problem. Just say, hey, preacher, how you doing today? Just want to see how you're doing. Want to check on you. You know, those things mean so much to a pastor. It's a thankless job most of the time, but I know where my reward is. And I'm not one, I don't need a lot of pats on the back. I guess just to be blunt, my wife probably needs, she wants to see more pats on my back than I do. She kind of says she don't, I think we got a demon.
Yeah, he's coming.
Yeah, something going on back there. But I think she wants me to be more appreciated, and I've told her, I said, yeah, it's no big deal. I know what's going. I know what the Lord wants, and he, you know, and some people have a hard time with that. They don't know what to do, and I think the best thing is show up, just be part of the church, be engaged, be involved. I think that's probably the most important thing for a pastor.
Absolutely. Well, what message would you like to give your congregation, you know, if they watch this video? What's something you'd like to tell them? You know, that's the main camera on you there.
Same thing I tell them every time I see them, how much I love them. I tell you, my church and my church family are close. They're supportive of one another. They're a loving church, a caring church, and a giving church. And I just want them to spread that outside these walls. Keep doing what you're doing. And we got a fellow that sings a song, I'm gonna let my little light shine. Let your light shine. Every day, let your light shine. Show them how much you love one another and show them how much you can love others.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. And I've had a good time just sitting here and catching up. And
well, I've been knowing you a long time.
Oh, I know. Well, I was telling Andre on the way over here, I said, now, don't you get him started on any stories, because he's known me since I was, 8 or 9, or 5 or, yeah. 4 or 5, kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
Yeah.